Hello, my name is Saahil Malge. I am studying my Masters of Business Analytics, and my today's topic is about how Apple and its third-party developers have had a beautiful evolution from 1976 till 2023, and what the story is like, what the journey has been, and what the dance between the technology, the revolution, and everything with it within the developer community. It's impossible to talk about the evolution of Apple before talking about the founders of Apple. Founded in 1976, Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, and the very less known Ronald Wayne came together for the inception of Apple. Apple back then was something that was very, very simple, very small, and they were trying to build something extremely big. These were the days where they marked on capitalizing on the features of personal computers, how they can do more in the personal computer space, and what are the different things that they can bring forward and the things that they can introduce which are revolutionary for the term. Not only that, they also started and epitomized the introduction of Apple I computer and the Apple II computer. If you can see above, that is exactly how it looked like, a small box which back then was one of the best designs that was ever there, and also something that was something so small and so easy to use that it revolutionized how people saw computers and what and how they can interact with it. Let's fast forward to 1984. This was the introduction of the world famous Macintosh computers. These were revolutionary, groundbreaking, and something that everyone was expecting and wanting. But with this, a very important thing came. That was the Macintosh toolbox. This toolbox helped third-party developers engage and make different softwares within the Macintosh system. This was the emergence of where the third-party developers and Apple came together. More importantly, this was also the time when it really emerged as one of the beginnings of the ecosystem, the emerging ecosystem, the vibrant ecosystem that Macintosh, Apple, and the developers came together to make. Now, going into the 1990s, the Mac was really revolutionary. Everyone caught onto the whole spin wheel and wanted to be part of this beautiful journey. More importantly, it was a time when the software market had extremely expanded. Everywhere there were computers, and Macintosh and Apple were at the forefront of it. More importantly, all the developers really embraced the whole Mac platform, and they started making apps specific and very much related to the Mac software itself. Today we see those in Android and iOS, but this was the start where Mac got its own audience. More importantly, a lot of communities of developers started forming. The communities of users and developers used to interact with each other, making the whole process of innovation extremely simple and one-to-one. This was the first time when point-to-point interface, a platform interface, and the whole business model of how Apple wanted to work and used to work changed. And now this is the time which everyone remembers. Let them be at least 35 years old or 20 years old. Everyone knows this time, and this was the introduction from Steve Jobs of the first iPhone in the 2010s, and 2007 was one of those years. More importantly, it was not the iPhone that broke the world. It was actually the App Store. The App Store was the first thing where a third-party developer could come on a global platform. This really transformed the game, and it led to an explosive growth in the third-party community as well as the users, because now they could really interact with their phone in a much different way. This gave a lot of chance to different developers to develop apps not only on the laptops but now on phones that could be used every single day. But now let's come to 2010. Things got a little bit strict. Apple started to introduce something different, the enactment of the strict app review. Why this happened is because of the guidelines. A lot of people were facing a lot of problems with respect to apps and their privacy. Since the third-party app developers were already involved with sharing data and taking data of the user, some apps were doing it in a very wrong way, and this was leading to a lot of problems. But there was also a very bug introduction, and that was the in-app purchases policy. This helped a lot of third-party developers to start monetizing with the apps that they make. Not just through ads, but through their games, through the different interactions that they can have within the app. This really promoted all third-party developers to work much harder and bring in new and innovative games as well as new innovative applications. Somewhere in the midst of all of this, a lot of controversies and debates did come up. But this was only to challenge the developers and the Apple company's relationship. They went through a tough time, but sooner or later they found a middle ground where they could understand what are the reasons that they are doing. 2010 saw a remarkable feat. It introduced the new programming language called Swift. Swift was so good because it had different APIs as well as software development kits that really help programmers program very specifically for the Mac and for the whole Apple ecosystem. Not only this, it was very easy to use and used very simple coding language that was easy to implement as well as easy to test. Not only this, but iOS and the Mac OS started to converge. What this basically meant is all the apps that I could be using on my Mac OS could now also be used on my iPhone. This made it really easy for every developer because now they cannot be only stuck to one system or one type of platform, but two platforms. That is the phone, the watch, as well as the MacBooks. Slowly and slowly, this whole process became so easy for all developers that it again promoted a lot of innovation as well as take it a little further. This decade did not stop here. It really went to the next level. The emergence of HomeKit as well as HealthKit really changed the game. All app developers now could actually interact with the people's houses as well as people's health and data analytics related to that. Now Apple was not only on their devices, on their hands or on their laptops, it was everywhere around them. And this really helped third-party developers get into and make different kinds of apps. The second thing was the made for iPhone tag. A lot of third-party applications were already there in terms of a software, but how did Apple expand to an hardware system? That was through the MFI program. If you wanted to buy a braided cable for an iPhone, you could buy that with an MFI stamp. Now this stamp helped a lot of the different competitions to actually stand out because this helped them give them a new certification, as well as with all the tech and the certifications that they had, they could really use both of these things together to actually perform better in the market as well as get a good remuneration. Because of all of this, a lot of different cross-platform apps started to emerge, started to innovate, and it became a very wonderful ecosystem that was not only engulfed by Apple and its developers, but also by third-party. It's time to talk about the present. The present has completely changed how we see things. The introduction of VR is something that is really revolutionizing and is going to change how we see developers, third-party developers, and what they can do with this new tech. More importantly, this was a time to celebrate all kinds of developers, let them be in-house or the ones who are third-party. This was the emergence of WWDC, the annual developers conference that Apple holds, in which all the developers can come, sit, enjoy and interact and understand the tech much more deeper and get first hands-on to a lot of things. All the top brands in and around the world have really taken a lot of help from this. This comes from the emergence of getting new brands as well as new partnerships that they could have with third parties, as well as new third party applications being launched during the iPhone launch and during the iOS launch as well. This really helped to stay up with the game and also have a very good partnership as a whole. But more importantly, this was an emphasis on a lot of innovation and partnership. Innovation was at the cusp. It was happening for the last 20 years, but this was the time when they realized that a partnership is extremely important. And this is why the WWDC is so famous. Now talking about the future. Apple is at the cusp of innovation right again. Now with new tech in AI as well as VR, it's a completely different game changer. How people consume content, how people interact with different devices is completely changing. And with all of this is also going to be a new change that is with respect to regulatories and policies. These changes are very imperative because once these changes come in, they will actually help developers build much more easily and much more sleeker in terms of the development cycle. Not only that, third-party developers are changing the future of Apple. They are actually shaping it in some ways, because these different types of techs that are really coming up out in the open, for example ChatGPT, OpenAI, these kinds of different brands and applications of theirs are really pushing Apple to integrate with them and make sure that they are also part of the whole wave. Apple is not stopping, the third-party developers are not stopping, and this is why it's all, as you can see, this has been a dynamic relationship between Apple and its developers, let that be in-house or third-party developers. Starting right above from 1987, where Apple emerged as one of the top tech companies, faced a lot of problems, and emerged through the whole process. Right to the future, where it is looking extremely bright, there are new policies, new regulations, and new tech waiting to be introduced to the Apple family and the ecosystem.